Good morning to everyone. The chairman, Ogun State branch of CIPM, the vice chairman, the general secretary of the branch, the financial secretary of the branch, the publicity secretary of the branch, all the executive members of the branch, immediate past chairman, I cannot forget you. I greet everyone. The fellows here present, the distinguished members of our great institute, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, even the to-be members, I greet everyone here on this call. Good morning. Welcome to this particular session. I think this is the first one in this year, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you for making yourself available. Today, we just want to look at understanding core HR processes. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, by the way, by leading through that code of conduct, where we say we encourage, we promote, encourage, and place acceptable processes and procedures. And this is part of what we are doing to ensure that we promote, encourage, and in place acceptable processes. We want to look at what are the core HR processes and what do we need to do to understand them, to be able to promote them. As members of the Institute, everywhere we go to, we represent the Institute. And the emblem of the Institute should be seen and should be mirrored through us. Everywhere they see us, they should see the embodiment of good processes, the embodiment of good practices. And that's why we are looking at this topic this morning, understanding core HR processes. My name has been announced earlier. I'm Gbenga Odetunde, the Director of Professional Standards and Development at the CIPM here. So we will be there together for the next few minutes, having this conversation, and after which we'll listen to some questions before we call it a date. Today, in terms of what we'll be looking at, we will want to understand the contribution of the HR in any organization. We want to learn the key activities of the HR function as relates to business. We want to be able to evaluate the role and responsibility of HR. You sitting as an HR, you should be able to establish and evaluate your own role and responsibility in your organization. You should know how you contribute. Then we want to see how we'll be equipped to add measurable value to business that we represent or in which we are working. We want to learn how to create and improve workplace environment that inspires, that energizes, and that produce desired results. To start with, by the means of definition, what is HR? It represents the critical resource that coordinates other resources effectively and efficiently to ensure that we get the desired results in the organization. Human resource is the one that coordinates other resources for effective and efficient output at the end of the day. It involves a systematic study, acquisition, and management of people resources for the purpose of meeting organization needs. It can also be seen as a process and policies guiding the utilization of people in an organization. It is a subject that covers different areas just or different subjects such as organization structure, recruitment, deployment, learning, performance management, employee relations and communications, culture, compensation and benefit, welfare, and etc., etc. Practically speaking, I want to talk about 12 key functions of HR. 12 key functions of HR in any organization, starting from human resource planning. What is human resource planning? That's the process that enables you to establish the quantity and the quality of people needed in an organization at a given point of time. You'll be able to establish the quantity, the quality that an organization needs to move forward as a going concern at every given point of time. That is human resource planning. If you do not know the right quantity, you do not know the right quality, you are going to be under-resourcing or over-resourcing or populate even the organization with people of no value or little or no value. Then that's why that is very, very important. If you are hired as an HR, you should know the optimal number of people in the right quality, the right quantity that will sustain that organization within a given period of time. So, and for you, after establishing that, then you move to the next level of resourcing, or what you call recruitment and selection. Some people will call it talent acquisition. So it is a process of bringing in people to fill vacant positions. And in doing this, in performing this function as an HR, you should know that it is a very critical role, because it is very important that you bring the right set of people with the required skill, the right skill into an organization. Recruitment is not something that you do with sentiment. Recruitment is not something that you do with the mindset of favoritism. So you need to be sure, because by bringing in people, the end aim or expectation of bringing in people, hiring people, is to be able to add value. But there is a way you recruit people, you bring them to organization. Not only that, they themselves will not be able to perform, they can serve as poison to other people who have been performing. And that's why recruitment is a serious business in an organization. You have to ensure that you hire the right set of people. After hiring people, the next thing in an organization that is well structured is to ensure that you begin to manage their performances, starting from probationary target that you are going to give onto them. Give them target. From time to time, you begin to ensure that you monitor their performance. At the end of the probation period, you evaluate to ensure whether you have to ascertain whether you have made the right decision in the first instance. And at the end of probation period, when you evaluate the performance, there are three possible outcomes. Is either you say, yes, we've made the right decision and we are confirming this person on this role. Or yes, we have some kind of indications that this person, okay, he has delivered some, but let's wait and see If we can deliver more, we are not sure yet. Let's expand or extend this probation period to ascertain whether what he claims to have known, knew them, or what he claims to have acquired a skill, he has them. So you do that one. The third possibility is that if you have mishired, you will see at the period when you are evaluating to be glaring and very clear that this person is a previously unidentified recruitment error, pure, and you may want to terminate the contract at that particular point in time. After the performance management, some results are going to come out. Some areas that need development, where that person needs improvement, you schedule him for learning and development, of course, to ensure that he or she has what it takes to fill all the identified gaps. Even when he or she was able to deliver successfully, it is very, very important to at least give him some kind of exposure that will enable him add more value at higher level. Let's assume that he has performed optimally at the level in which you have given him that responsibility to perform. Then you move on. Part of what you do as HR is to ensure that you encourage people to take responsibility for growth and development. And that's why at times, or in many cases, when you are on the panel of interview or interviewers, you ask a question to an employee, where do you see yourself? What do you find yourself doing? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years? You are talking to him, you want to know whether that person is able to take charge of his own career. It is the process through which an individual prepare himself or herself, to take charge and to be able to deliver in an organization. It is different from career planning and from succession planning, sorry. It is different from succession planning. Career planning is individual driven, while succession planning is organizational driven. In succession planning, you want to develop individual towards taking up a critical role to ensure continuity of that organization. However, in this career planning, you want to ensure that individuals take charge of their own development to ensure that as they move along the organization, they see where they fit. And there could be, and that's why at times when you are having people discussion forum for the people at the top management level, when you are having people discussion forum and you are trying to see where people can function, you find in an individual at times 4 different roles, 4 different functions in which that person can function, 4 different functions that that person can handle successfully in that organization, even without anybody channeling them to that. They took charge of their own career. So you ensure that you encourage as much as possible people to take charge of their career. And it helps you even in the succession planning at the end of the day. And part of what you do is that you do function evaluation. As people move, as people grow in career, they want to advance as well. And responsibility as an HR person to establish relative worth of each function Let's assume that someone has performed efficiently and he has grown, he has shown some kind of potential to carry out more responsibility, to deliver more to an organization. It is very, very important to encourage that person, to motivate that person. You give him a higher responsibility. How do you establish a responsibility, a function that has higher responsibility in an organization? That's where the place of function evaluation. It establishes the relative worth of any function in an organization. And part of what you ensure that you do as an HR professional is to ensure that there is adequate reward to motivate, to keep people motivated, to keep people energized in an organization that may want to make them do more. There is a monetary aspect, but there are a lot of things we can do in terms of non-monetary. Recognition is part of reward, as it is very important to taking organization to the next level. If you operate in an area that is in an organization that is unionized, it is very, very important that you have knowledge and skills in managing a unionized organization. You need industrial relations skills to ensure that you keep minimum level of harmony required for organization to be in peace that engender growth and development. And if you are in an organization that is not unionized, it is very, very important to champion employee participation and communication. Ensure that there is a platform you put in place for people to hear their voice, to ensure that they take ownership. When there is employee participation and smooth communication among employees, there is this kind of sense of belonging. There is this kind of sense of ownership that comes with decision, that you make in an organization. Someone takes full charge and it takes full responsibility without being directed, because they are there. You have encouraged, you have provided the platform for them to participate openly, for them to communicate openly. So they take ownership, they take charge of everything they do. Then the process as well, you ensure that the environment in which they work is very, very safe to them. Very, very safe. When we are talking about health and safety, it includes a number of measures that you put in place. Take, for instance, if you have hired someone that is living with disability, for instance, there is a need for you to put in place things that will not threaten his existence further, to ensure that you make him as comfortable as possible, as secure as possible. The same thing, even people who are not living with disability, let me put it that way, who are not living with disability, you ensure that you put in place safety measures that will ensure that they are mentally safe and they are physically safe in an organization. Take, for instance, there are people who are mentally disconnected in an organization because of emotional insecurity. Emotional insecurity can come up from any angle. Harassment, if you do not have harassment policy, there can be a problem in that area. People can go through emotional torture. If there are no clear means, clear policy around how they can report any threats to their mental being, to their physical being, then there's going to be a problem. Well-being of an employee should be a paramount thing to you, because when their well-being are taken care of, you are sure of the kind of innate energy that engender. And the last but not the least on this 12 key function is the administrative responsibility of the HR. Whether you build policy, whether you build procedure at any point in time, you ensure that everything is administered. You put in place step by step to ensure how that policy is going to be administered in the organization to ensure that you achieve results smoothly as expected. So, as an HR person, there are some kind of skills expected of you as an HR professional. Personal data management, you need to develop a skill. I have seen situations by negligence of HR. Someone all of a sudden, the person spent over 2 decades in that organization. And the data he entered, as at the time he entered that organization, is the data he still had as personal data. Then all of a sudden, the person died, suddenly. And now, how to manage all the entitlements that belong to that person became an issue. In 2022, for instance, it happened to someone very close to me. My elder brother, was assassinated all of a sudden. Then by the time the insurance paid and the exit benefit they wanted to give to him, they are looking for how to go about it, simply because the person he used as his next of kin, it was before he got married. And that person, the uncle used, the uncle was dead at that particular point in time. Our uncle that he used, our uncle he stayed with when he came to Lagos, it was a person that had been there and nobody reminded him. And that's why, as an HR, you need to develop that skill of ensuring that personal data of employee under you remain up to date at any given time, so that when there is a need to use them, if nothing happened, you may not see the need, but things are happening consistently, and we are seeing around us practically that shows that it is very, very important for you to manage the personal data of your employee. Keep an update and manage. Attendance management, things that are simple as attendance management, very, very important in any organization, because it ascertains, it tells you at every given time how many the head counts that are in that organization. For instance, there is any eventuality, if there is no attendance management, how do you ascertain the people who have escaped? Okay, so there was a building some time ago that just collapsed like that, and immediately they were able to ascertain how many people have been trapped and how to locate them. So effort was put in place with immediate effect to ensure that these people were rescued. It was through the attendance management that they were able to ascertain the record, who was out and who was still in. Resource management, we are faced with resource constraints at every point in time. So it is the responsibility of HR to ensure that resources in the organization are managed optimally. We know that yes, you want to ensure that you motivate people, but you want to motivate them if there are no resources there. Then resources, if they are there, they are not sufficient. What do? You ensure that you manage resources in optimal way. Skills management. It is the amount and quantum of skill that is resident in an organization that determines the success or the wise of that organization. You ensure that you manage the skill when you see that these skills will be required to move this organization forward in the next 2 years. You should be proactive enough. If the skill is not resident in that organization, be proactive enough to ensure that people acquire the skill. I've spoken about resource constraint. Resource constraint will make you ration the allocation of resources to ensure that the organization keeps moving. Training management. Training is not just for sending people out to go and learn. Training has its own basis at every given time. Not just sending people on training. Ensure that that training you send them to gives them the kind of skill that is really relevant and applicable to your own kind of business, to ensure that the business is able to benefit from the training. Performance management is very, very important. You need to know how to manage performance of the employees in the organization. And that's why you should understand the business concept itself, from the strategic planning to business planning, because it's from the strategy plan that you are going to derive your business plan at any given time. Is a business plan you cascade to different directorates, to different departments, to different units. And is that the different unit, different directorates will, distribute to the people working under them. You should be able to coordinate these activities end to end and ensure that at every given time, nothing falls to crack. And as people perform, you should be able to know how to manage their pay. As an HR person, you administer what relates to their performance. So you become HR and benefits administrator. That skill is very, very important. What goes to who and at what time do you have to do this? So, having said this, I want to talk about this 7 human resource best practice. Like I mentioned earlier, in our code of conduct, when we are reading, to say you want to support, to promote, encourage, and employ acceptable practices. So here's one of them. Like I mentioned earlier, providing security to employees. Ensure that everyone is secure mentally, emotionally, and physically. It is your responsibility. There is no how people will give their best in an unsecure environment if they know that they can be bullied anyhow without anything happening at any point in time. They are mindful on how to express, they are mindful. In fact, there is no how they can be productive. There is no how they can be creative. There is no how they can be productive optimally if there is no security cover for them. Then when you are hiring, you have to ensure that you hire the right set of people. Putting the round peg in the round hole is very important. Like I mentioned earlier, mishiring does not, the effect of mishiring does not stop with the function in which you have mishired. It goes down to the level of poisoning even the people that have been performing if you mishire or your hiring process is not right. Then part of the best practices is to ensure that even as HR, you encourage people self-managing, people to be self-aware. You have that self-awareness, and at the same time, you are a team player as a person. You encourage that one, the sense of self-management and the sense of team management. What about fear and performance-based compensation? You have to ensure fairness in distribution of compensation, and you have to make compensation performance-based in an organization. Anytime people perceive that there is some kind of conspiracy in the way people are compensated in organization, then there will be problem. And I remember some times ago, somebody came, wanted to hunt me. And I asked, what is the pay range like? And the person laughed. I said, Oga, it depends on your bargaining power. I say, bargaining power. He said, yes. That if you do not bargain well, you will see that even somebody that is reporting to somebody that is reporting to you earns more than you. Not by the means of variable pay, because there are roles by the means of variable pay. Maybe we say, if you made this target, you are going to get this. If you made this, at the end of the day, when you add their pay, it can outweigh your gas zone. No, the normal pay, somebody that is reporting to somebody that is reporting to you can earn more than you are earning if he has a higher bargaining power. So you have to be fair. You ensure fairness and ensure that compensation is performance-based. Training in relevant skill is very important. I've mentioned it earlier. It's very, very important. Training in the relevant skill. Ensure that you don't just send people to training. Don't just send people on training. You send them to go and acquire relevant skill that will add value to the organization. And ensure as much as possible that you create a flat and egalitarian organization. Ensure that you create a flat. What this ensures is that bureaucracy is minimized. And that's why I like, in many cases, how SMEs operate, because you have the owner, maybe the owner is working with 1 or 2 persons only, and you see the pace of decision making. But by the time you begin to have a structure that this one we have to write through, that one write through this, through that, through this, through that, through this, through that, before you get to the final approval, the time has overtaken the essence of your decision. And that's why in many cases, before decision is being made, the business value have been lost to a significant extent. Then another one that you need to take cognizance of as best practice is making information easily accessible to those who need it. Make information easily accessible at every point in time, whether at management level and even to the general employee. Make information available and ensure that the information is quality information to ensure that at every point in time, people can rely on your information, the kind of information you provide to make business decision. So in summary, everything I've been saying, it is summarized as follows. Summary of core HR processes. Recruitment, which is a process of getting the right people to fill vacant position, is very, very important. Very, very important. And of course, recruitment can be excellent. The vacant position is a resource from within an organization that is internal. When it is from outside the organization, that is excellent. So from recruitment to selection to training, of course, training can be on the job and can be off the job. There is nothing. They say practice makes perfect. At every point in time, when you are working, you are learning through that work, and that's on the job. Off the job is when you are sent out to go and attend a training. Assessing performance is very, very important. There are some organizations, they still embrace traditional method of assessing performance, that after a certain KPI, you wait till maybe middle of the year or end of the year before you assess performance. But there are organizations that they assess their performances on daily basis. You discuss performances on daily basis. And that's why it is very, very important to understand this. There are some organizations, their performance is assessed on daily basis, so that at the end, you don't wait till the end. You don't wait till you have failed before you start bringing out what that person has done, the kind of training they're supposed to send him to. Right from the beginning, on daily basis, you should hold yourself accountable within an organization. Measure your performance along the line so that you don't wait to the end of the year. And as people perform, ensure that you keep them motivated. Even the ones that do not perform, by ensuring that you address the reasons for their non-performance is enough to motivate them. It is enough to motivate them. And when people perform, you reward them, ensure that you give them the due recognition that they want. And that will compensate them for their time, their knowledge, their devotion and commitment, compensate them. And you ensure, as a person, any hurdle that can relate, any hurdle that can bring hindrance to your business, especially the hurdle that relate to terms of employment, you minimize those hurdles as much as possible by maintaining labor relations at any given time. So, and ensure that you keep people healthy, ensure that you see to their welfare, ensure that you see to their safety at every given time. And above all, I love an element on the Institute Code of Conduct say respect the laws of the land. Everything you are doing as an HR person, you have to ensure that you do it within the ambience of the labor law, operating within your business operation or business operating environment. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. This is the end of the presentation. Let me listen to some questions before I move to my next meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. I really appreciate the effort of the Institute to put up a program like this for us to keep learning and developing ourselves, and also being well exposed to what we should be getting involved in as HR practitioners. But I want to ask a question, sir, as it relates to the sector in which I work. I want to ask, how do we manage issue of recruitment in a sector like the public sector where applicants are being imposed on such an organization? You know, having go through the recruitment exercise, you discover that this person coming in will not actually benefit the organization, but you know, it's from the I place individual that say he must be employed. And in this situation, how do you manage it, sir? So that at least we can learn from here and then try to see how we can manage it as some of us who are in the public sector, and see how we work with them and still make best use of them, sir. That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much. A very, very critical question. It's not only in public sector that happens, it happens in private sector as well. But what HR people are able to do to navigate through that hurdle is to ensure that you put in place, in the first instance, a very viable recruitment policy. So in that policy, you ensure that you state all the requirements, all the processes that must be followed. And of course, know that at that point, when you are developing that policy, those factors or people trying to impose people are not there. So you just develop that policy and you take to those authorities to sign themselves. After signing, you will see that it is very easy for you to reject, not by opposition, but by referring to the policy. See, okay, let me cite an example, for instance. Sometimes ago, even here in CIPM, then we did not have global standard, let me put it that way, for production of human resource management journal. And something happened one day. One influential person sent in a paper. I just came in then, and I saw that that paper could not go through. I said, this paper will not go through. Then my Oga then came. I said, do you know what you are saying? Do you want to take my job? I said, why? He said, because you cannot reject the paper of this person. So what I did was to rework that paper because of that statement, rework that paper to meet the standard. Then I sent back to that person that your paper did not meet the stated criteria, required criteria, but this is what I've done. Will you accept it? Like this, he said, yes, we should go ahead and publish. But immediately, what that action told me was the need to develop comprehensive criteria that pre-qualified any paper that we want to publish in that journal. So I did. It was taken to the governing council. Governing council approved it. After that approval, a sitting president wrote a paper that did not meet the criteria. So, in fact, it wasn't even me at my level, because there was someone who was in charge of pre-qualifying those people. Based on the criteria, she was able to rise and state the criteria very vividly and put our Oga, put in copy of that mail as she was sending. And immediately the person accepted, went to correct. So what am I saying? She was able to correct, the person was able to correct because there are a set of criteria that have been pre-qualified and signed, pre-approved by the governing council that you cannot go against. So let there be a recruitment policy. You can make reference to that policy so that it won't be like it is your voice against their voice. It is the policy against practice now. And when you point it out, they will be careful. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% pure, but they'll be careful.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me first and foremost appreciate the organizers of this lecture. Just like the last question, the resource person actually thought about hiring the right people for a particular job. Then the question is, just as the question goes, how could you address the issue of political influence on our recruitment process in an organization, even in the country? How could you address the issue of political influence on our recruitment processes? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I will answer that question with an experience shared by someone. You know, that in the banking sector, for instance, in the banking sector, there are people who control. So they control in the sense that they have huge amount of deposit in those banks. And when they ask you, for instance, they give somebody a note to the MD of the bank, you must hire this person. If that person says no, what they do is to threaten by withdrawing or by moving their money that constitute a very high percentage of total deposit in that bank. So by that threat alone, they want to accept. That person was saying what they now did was to find a way around it. There are some roles they reserve for such thing. Because in many cases, you will not have control over. But what you ensure that you do to navigate through is that if you know that that person, if they recommend somebody and that person qualifies, fine. But if the person does not qualify, there are roles that you know that when you put them and they do not perform, it will not affect the organization. There are political roles in some organizations, and there's nothing someone can do about it for now. So just ensure that those roles are there in a way that even when that individual comes, it does not perform. It removes little or nothing from the organization itself. So that is my own political way of answering that question. Thank you. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
There is a question I read in the chat. Somebody who read physics. How does she go about it to become an HR person? Very simple. We are talking about skill. There is what we call career switch. We have seen people who read biochemistry becoming HR director. All you need to do is begin to build competencies, begin to acquire knowledge in that line. You want to become HR, then come and join CIPM as a student member. As a student member, you can start by writing examination. And after writing examination and you are qualified and you become an associate, there is a program that CIPM has. We call it Ready to Market. That Ready to Market is an internship program that ensures that we re-equip you, give you basic foundation of end-to-end HR value chain, what we do in HR in terms of knowledge. And after that, we post you to an organization for an internship for a period of 1 year. We have a lot of success stories around that. People who were in different careers before, people who were in pure sciences before writing CIPM's examination, and after that, they pass through that internship program. They have everything they needed. And we have, in many cases, many of them being retained even before the expiration of their internship period. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thanks for this training. It really helped me. The question I want to ask is related to this training management. Like the sector where I'm working is a pharmaceutical company. The pharmacists are being trained on a monthly basis, while the back end staff, like the auditors, the procurement officers, and the likes, are not being trained. And these have been causing a lot of problems about we also want to be trained. How can we be trained? And the likes like that. And the management have been telling them to look for um, courses online that can actually help them, which most of them requires payment, and the management is not willing to pay. In a situation like this, as an HR person, what can I do? Because it's always and usually boils back at me like I'm not doing anything to help them to acquire their own training while the pharmacists are being trained and things like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Though your voice was very low, but I think you are talking about the management's unwillingness to take up certain responsibility in terms of sponsoring some people for training, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as HR, almost every HR faces that. But I can tell you that if you are able to tell the management what they are risking, the risk associated with that, and it has to be data driven. Take, for instance, if you train this person, in fact, you can look at certain mistakes that person has made, and you are able to relate or link it to business results. You are able to link it to how it affects profitability in that organization. So you go back to the management. If we don't send this person this training, these are the likely costs. That is number one. Number two is that you should be able to talk to people that their career development is in their hand. At any point in time, when there is a vacancy in a higher position, it is the people who have or who are perceived to have had some kind of requisite knowledge around the subject or around the function that will be given. So we have seen people, myself as a person, I don't stop learning. I don't wait for any organization to send me on training before I go. No, I don't. And I can tell you that it may be hard at the beginning, but at the end, it is paying off. Okay. For instance, when there was opening for position of the director of professional standards and development in the organization here, They made it both internal and external recruitment. But I can tell you, I made boast to say, no other person was able to move near me in terms of score, and I got the job at the end of the day. So I hold it to God, but there are a lot of personal development that has gone into this as well. You are able to use data to convince the management, and you are able to convince the people as well involved that their personal development is very, very important to their career advancement anywhere they go to, not in that organization alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm so much grateful for this insightful training. However, sir, my question is based on resignation. Precisely in where I am working, somebody resigned. He didn't come to the office for 4 days, and then he now resigned. After the resignation, 3 days after, he came back and said he wants to volunteer himself for the organization to be doing the same job that he was doing before as a driver. And I was telling my my management that, sir, it's not done anywhere in the whole world. If you had resigned and coming back would be a reabsorption, not that you are coming to say you want to volunteer, because you will stand to be a risk to the organization. But I was told that let him continue. So, and I seized this opportunity to say, since I have my director in the house, my chairman in the house, can you enlighten me, sir, so that it won't be as if I'm working outside the best practice of HR. Thank you, sir.
That's very loaded. Okay, the first question, don't go yet, don't mute your microphone yet. Let me dig deeper.
Correct, sir.
The first question I need to ask you is that,
yes,
what's the duration between which that person resigned and the time he was willing to come back and come and do free of charge?
The duration was, he came on Wednesday, and on Saturday, that's about 4 to 5 days. 4 days. 4 days.
No, there must be something. It's very, very risky. Absolutely
very, very
risky.
risky.
I can tell you, it is risky. But if the person insists, let it be documented. Okay? State the risk that you can see. Document that risk and send. And of course, let the management know and sign off that you have seen. No, it's not because they are not aware of this. These are the risks, and let them respond. Okay? And put it in writing. As you have documented, send in writing. Let them put in writing that continue, reabsorb this person, so that at the end of the day, when the eventuality happens eventually, nobody is going to triangulate you because of that. So that would be my advice. But I can tell you, that guy, somebody that has been earning income, say, don't give me money again, so I want to volunteer and come. How rich is he? As a person, as a driver, you need to be very, very careful. It's either he wants to abscond with that vehicle to go and start Uber of his own, something. You need to take into cognizance that risk. But if you advise and they refuse, put it into writing. Let them also instruct you in writing. That would be my advice.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I'm very grateful, sir.
You're welcome.
God bless, sir.
For the announcement, to request a course certificate, we've displayed this for this professional development course. You know, the course is free, but if you want to request a certificate, the certificate attracts a fee. For financial members of Ogun State branch, if you are either in the Abeokuta chapter, either in Okemoson chapter, Agbara chapter, RCCG chapter, or Ta chapter of Ogun State branch, and you have paid your dues up till date, you are only paying 2,000 naira for this certificate. All our courses certificates, just 2,000 naira, and the certificate will be given to you. If you belong to any of these chapters and you have not paid your dues, or you are not a member of our branch, maybe you are from Lagos State branch, you are from any other branch outside Ogun State branch, or you are not a member of CIPM at all, the fee you will pay for this certificate is 5,000 naira. So that is the difference between those that pay their dues to the branch and those that do not. And this is a sample of the certificates. And I'm confirming to you now that this attracts a credit point during your upgrade. Is going to be counted as a professional development course that you have attended in the last 5 or 6 years. And that is the reason why we are strict with attendance. We do not issue certificates to those who do not attend our courses. And those who stroll in at the end of the courses will not be issued certificates. You will please wait for the next course, and then we can move on. Now, we have this course coming up next month. We want to rethink performance management. And we are looking at agile, continuous, and feedback-driven approaches. Performance management, it's what you use to look at goals for the year. You look at the tasks to be performed. You cascade the entire strategic imperatives down to tasks that will be performed by each employee on a day-to-day basis. So we want to look at it, we want to approach it from the agile, continuous, and feedback-driven point of view. And no other person is more qualified to take this course than our very own Ayo Muritala himself, the dawn of performance management in the field of human resource management.